Tucker Carlson thought he was in for another easy win. He had the home court advantage, a fiercely loyal audience, and decades of experience steamrolling guests on primetime television. But the moment Jonathan Roumie stepped onto that stage, something felt different. Roumie, best known for portraying Jesus in The Chosen, wasn't there for theater. He came with truth, humility, and a quiet kind of strength that no one in that studio was prepared for. What unfolded next stunned everyone watching, even Carlson himself. For 9 straight interruptions, Tucker tried to dominate the conversation. He raised his voice, cut Roumie off mid-sentence, and used every rhetorical trick in his arsenal to reframe, distort, and distract. The audience, typically eager to cheer Tucker's takedowns, grew uneasy. The tension thickened. It looked like yet another guest was about to be drowned out by the Carlson machine. And then came the tense sentence. What Jonathan Roumie said next, it didn't just silence Tucker Carlson. It froze the entire studio. The audience fell silent. The cameras kept rolling. And for the first time in his career, the king of manufactured outrage had absolutely nothing to say. Before we dive into this moment that reshaped cable news, take a second to comment where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more political showdowns where truth still wins. This wasn't just a debate. This was the moment a quiet actor and man of faith exposed the deepest hypocrisy in conservative media, live and in front of millions. To understand how this confrontation sent shockwaves through the country, you need to know who these two men are and why this moment was years in the making. Tucker Carlson isn't just another pundit, he's the face of a movement. With his nightly Fox News platform, Carlson has built an empire around pushing cultural fear, pseudo-patriotism, and grievance politics. For over a decade, he's used his platform to attack anyone who challenges his worldview. He's debated senators, mocked scientists, belittled activists, and walked away with the applause of millions. Carlson's approach is aggressive and theatrical. Ask leading questions, trap the guest in binary choices, and never ever let them finish a full thought. He thrives on control. Interruptions aren't accidental, they're strategic. And for years it worked. But what Tucker Carlson didn't expect, what no one in the studio expected, was that his next guest wouldn't just be another political figure. He would be Jonathan Roumie, a 49-year-old actor whose portrayal of Jesus Christ had made him a beloved and spiritually resonant figure to millions across political lines. Jonathan wasn't there to promote a film. He was there to talk about truth. More specifically, he had come to challenge the way media, especially conservative media, distorts faith to serve ideology. Carlson didn't know as yet, but this would be the hardest interview of his career. Roumie, the son of a Catholic Egyptian father and Irish-American mother, wasn't raised in privilege. His journey was one of hardship, rejection, and ultimately, spiritual surrender. After years of struggling in Hollywood, he found purpose portraying Christ, not as a weapon, but as a mirror. What made Roumie dangerous to someone like Tucker wasn't just his popularity. It was his clarity, his preparation, and his unshakable calm. He didn't come to fight, he came to reveal, and he came ready. Carlson wanted to control the narrative, to paint Roumie as another Hollywood liberal using religion to virtue signal. But Jonathan wasn't rattled. He didn't raise his voice, he didn't argue, he waited. And when the moment came, he delivered one of the most devastatingly honest truths ever spoken on conservative television. But that's still to come. For now, picture the scene. The studio lights blaze. Tucker Carlson leans back with that trademark smirk. And across from him sits Jonathan Roumie, hands folded, posture steady, eyes filled not with anger, but quiet conviction. There's no script, no ego, just a man with a message, and he's about to speak it. "Welcome back to Tucker Carlson Tonight," Tucker began, his voice sharp, confident, and calculated, the voice that had defined conservative primetime for years. Tonight, we're joined by actor Jonathan Roumie, who, believe it or not, claims to have some bold new perspective on faith, crime, and policing in America. "Jonathan, let's begin with this." Jonathan opened his mouth to respond. "But first," Tucker cut in, "I have to say, this document you brought, this so-called research, it reads like soft on crime, anti-police rhetoric. How do you justify attacking the very men and women who put their lives on the line to protect our cities?" The audience gave an approving murmur. Classic Carlson, frame the guest before he even speaks. Jonathan's posture didn't shift. His eyes were calm, steady. Internally, he noted one interruption. Noted. "Tucker," he began softly, "if you'll allow me to explain the heart and context No, 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 Tucker snapped, waving his hand like a judge dismissing a frivolous motion. Let's talk about facts. Crime is skyrocketing in Democrat-run cities. Police morale is in the gutter. And now you show up, an actor, with another narrative designed to undermine law enforcement. Don't you think that's irresponsible? Scattered applause broke out from the audience. Tucker was in his zone, riding momentum, punching down. But Jonathan was unmoved. He had stood in rooms with grieving mothers. He had prayed with broken officers. He had no interest in winning applause. The numbers I've brought, Jonathan tried again. You know what I think? Tucker leaned in, eyes narrowing. I think Hollywood elites like you, Jonathan. Live in a bubble. You play Jesus on TV, but have you ever walked a beat? Ever made a split-second call with someone pointing a gun at you? Have you ever worn a badge? Louder applause. This was the Tucker Carlson his viewers came for. Dismissive, confrontational, and loud. In the control room, producers were nodding. He was hitting all the cues, but Jonathan sat still, patient, quietly absorbing every jab. Tucker wasn't debating. He was performing. If we could just look at the actual data, Jonathan lifted a single page, printed neatly and highlighted. Data can be spun, Tucker barked. I can show you data that says more cops mean less crime. I can show you stories, real stories, of police saving lives every day. But you cherry pick a few examples and suddenly it's open season on law enforcement. The interruptions were rapid fire now. Every time Jonathan tried to speak, Tucker cut him off. He sensed he had the crowd impressed harder. Let me ask you this, Tucker barreled forward. Do you support defunding the police? Because that's exactly what this smells like. Another attempt by progressives and so-called Christians to dismantle the thin blue line. The audience roared. Defund the police, a trigger phrase, and Tucker knew it. He grinned like a hunter who'd cornered his prey. That's not what the report says, Jonathan interjected, calmly. So you support the police then? Tucker snapped. Because you can't have it both ways. Either you stand with law enforcement or you're part of the problem. Which is it, Jonathan? False dilemma, textbook tactic. Jonathan knew it. The crowd was on its feet now, applauding, laughing, cheering on the ringmaster. I notice you're dodging simple questions, Tucker said smugly. Let me ask something else. Have you ever been arrested? Maybe this whole performance is personal. Maybe you've got some grudge against cops. The crowd erupted. This was getting dirty. Tucker was now attacking character, not arguments. Jonathan's jaw didn't tighten. His faith had taught him to expect this. Stillness was his weapon. Tucker leaned back, signaling to producers. We're almost out of time here, he lied. The segment had only just begun. Bottom line, this little document of yours, it's just another Hollywood hit piece on the police. Yes or no, pressure, urgency, force a binary, dominate the clock. Tucker, if you would just... No, I think we've heard enough, Carlson declared, his voice louder now. You come on here with soft rhetoric, cloaked in religious language, unwilling to say if you stand with the heroes who protect us. And now you want to preach to my audience about reform? I don't think so. The crowd was roaring. Carlson was poised to dismiss him and move on. This was his show, his world. But Jonathan Roumie hadn't actually spoken yet. Not really. 9 interruptions, 9 attempts to drown him out. And yet he was still there, still composed, still holding that single page of truth in his hand. Then it happened. The studio entered that rare moment of silence, a brief beat after a host finishes his monologue and waits for his guest to flinch. Tucker leaned back, satisfied, smug. Jonathan Roumie raised his eyes, not to Tucker, but directly to the camera. His voice was gentle but piercing, like a prayer, like a verdict. Tucker, he began, you've interrupted me 9 times tonight, and I understand why. Because you sense, perhaps fear, that what I'm about to say challenges the very story this network has built its reputation on. The studio dropped into absolute silence, not even a cough, just stillness. Tucker Carlson, the interrupter, the dominator, sat frozen. Jonathan didn't stop. Jonathan had been waiting silently, not just for 5 minutes, but for a chance to speak uninterrupted, to deliver what he came to say. And now, with the nation watching and the air in the studio frozen still, he began. You asked if I support law enforcement, Roumie said, his voice warm but unwavering. I do, deeply. My godfather was a police officer in Queens for 28 years. My cousin is currently serving in Los Angeles. But supporting the police doesn't mean turning a blind eye. It means loving them enough to want them to be better, to be accountable, to protect every community equally. He opened the folder in front of him, slowly, deliberately, as if each page carried not just facts, but conviction. You asked for statistics. Let's look at yours, and then at the truth. He held up a page. In the last 3 years, this network has aired over 800 segments celebrating police heroism, and exactly 49 segments even mentioning misconduct. That's not journalism, Tucker. That's curation. That's selective storytelling. The camera zoomed in before the control room could react. Tucker shifted slightly in his chair. The audience was dead silent. But here's what your viewers never saw. Roumie continued. His tone was calm, not accusatory. Last month, your network received a Department of Justice memo. It showed that reported cases of police misconduct have risen 34% over the past 2 years. 17 media outlets received the same memo. 16 reported it. Fox News was the only one that did not. He held up a copy of the memo. A producer in the control room whispered, "Zoom out," but no one moved. This is that memo, Tucker. It matters because transparency isn't optional. Not when lives are on the line. Carlson tried to interject. That's a classified document. You can't just, it's not classified, Jonathan replied gently but firmly, cutting him off with his own tactic. It's publicly available, and your team knows that. You just chose not to tell your viewers. In the control room, panic had replaced smug satisfaction. Producers scrambled behind the glass, double-checking facts. Carlson said nothing. Jonathan wasn't finished. You asked if I've ever been arrested. No, I haven't. But I've sat with families whose children were. I've prayed with officers who broke down because they couldn't speak out about abuse in their departments. I've stood at the funerals of good cops betrayed by their own broken systems. His voice dropped lower, steadier. 6 months ago, I attended the memorial for Officer Marcus Thompson, a black officer in Atlanta, shot and killed by his own partner during what the department called a training exercise. But Officer Thompson had filed 3 internal complaints about racial abuse in his unit before he was silenced. The crowd didn't clap. They didn't boo. They simply listened. You didn't cover that story, Tucker, Jonathan said, locking eyes with his host. But you did run a segment that same week about an officer buying groceries for a woman in need. That's a beautiful story, but why was there time for that and not for Marcus? Carlson blinked, his face stiffening. We can't cover every tragedy. No, Roumie said, leaning forward slightly. But you chose which ones comfort your audience. You've built a brand on soothing them, not informing them, on telling them the world is fine until someone asks for justice. Then suddenly that person's the problem. Jonathan's tone never rose, but each word landed with moral precision. Your job, Tucker, shouldn't be to protect a worldview. It should be to seek truth, even when it challenges that worldview. He held up another document. This is a statement from the Fraternal Order of Police, the largest police union in America. In it, they say, quote, "We support accountability reforms as essential for building public trust." If they can admit that, why can't you? Something extraordinary was happening. The crowd, handpicked for loyalty, conditioned to jeer, wasn't clapping or mocking. They were absorbing. Some nodded, some furrowed brows. No one moved. Carlson tried to regroup. This is what I'm talking about, selective stats. Selective, Jonathan echoed. I cited documents, dates, names. You've offered feelings and framing. If you believe I've cherry-picked, disprove me. I'll wait. He folded his hands on the table and waited. 10 seconds passed. On TV, that's a lifetime. Tucker Carlson sat in his own silence. No cue cards, no smirk, no words. Jonathan finally spoke again, gently. I didn't come here to condemn the police. I came to speak for those who've been hurt and for the officers who want to serve with honor. But for change to happen, we need truth, not just noise. Dialogue, not just division. He turned toward Tucker once more. You've made a career out of interrupting people who disagree with you. But tonight, millions of your viewers heard what happens when someone actually gets to finish a sentence. He stood slowly, gathering his documents with reverence, not as props, but as evidence. As he walked toward the camera, he offered one final word, not as a performer, not even as a guest, but as a witness. Thank you for listening, even when someone tried to keep you from hearing. And with that, Jonathan Roumie walked off the set, leaving behind a silent host, a shaken audience, and a carefully maintained narrative cracked wide open. This wasn't just another viral moment. This was something entirely different and completely unprecedented. Within minutes of Jonathan Roumie walking off the set, the clip of Tucker Carlson sitting speechless began flooding social media. The moment he went silent, mouth half open, eyes blinking, was already circulating on X, formerly Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts. Fox News' own Fox Alert account posted the clip with its usual framing. Actor faces tough questions on Carlson Tonight, but the responses weren't what anyone expected. But at Political Watcher, a popular political account with 2.3 million followers, posted a very different version. Did Tucker Carlson just get destroyed by scripture, facts, and humility? The tweet included a side-by-side GIF. Tucker, smug and confident at the beginning of the segment. Tucker, speechless and slumped back at the end. Within 30 minutes, the hashtag @Carlson silenced was trending nationwide. But what happened in the comments was even more surprising. Fox News viewers, Carlson's own base, weren't mocking Roumie. They were defending him. "I watch Tucker every night. I've never seen him like that. Maybe we should have heard this guy out," wrote @FaithAndFlags. "I'm a lifelong conservative," added @Tradwife Texas. "But if that DOJ memo is real, why didn't Fox report it? Don't we deserve to know?" The panic inside conservative media was immediate. Laura Ingraham opened her show with, "This is why we don't hand microphones to Hollywood activists masquerading as moral authorities." Tucker himself attempted damage control the following night. His tone was less defiant, more guarded. "Last night, we hosted an actor who used selective stats and sanctimonious rhetoric to push a soft-on-crime agenda. Let me be clear, I support our law enforcement 100%. But the confidence was gone. Instead of addressing any of Roumie's points directly, he attacked his background, his acting career, his naivety. What he didn't do spoke volumes. He didn't deny the DOJ memo. He didn't dispute the statistics about Fox's police coverage. He didn't mention Officer Marcus Thompson. Fox's producers, normally in control of the media spin cycle, were now sifting through an avalanche of viewer emails, many from loyal Carlson fans asking, "Why didn't we know this? Is what he said true? Why did no one report this before?" The Roumie interview became the most watched Fox News segment of the year, but not for the reasons anyone at the network wanted. Even more concerning, in the week that followed, Carlson's ratings dropped 9%, his steepest decline in years. But it wasn't just viewership, it was trust that had been shaken. Across media, the reaction was explosive. MSNBC's Rachel Maddow devoted an entire monologue. "In 20 years of watching Tucker Carlson, I've never seen him stunned into silence by facts, and certainly not by an actor." CNN's Anderson Cooper was more measured. "What we witnessed was not a performance, but a masterclass in restraint, preparation, and moral clarity." Jonathan Roumie didn't just win an argument, he revealed something. Even more remarkable was who spoke up next. Police officers. Within 48 hours, a ripple effect began. Sergeant Maria Rodriguez of the Phoenix Police Department tweeted, "As a 15-year veteran, I'll say it clearly. Roumie is right. Accountability helps good officers do their job better." Captain James Mitchell, president of the Black Police Officers Association, released a statement. "Roumie spoke truths many officers know but fear to say. Accountability is not anti-police. It's pro-justice." Even the Fraternal Order of Police, whom Roumie had cited on air, issued a statement that did not refute him. "We believe in transparency and reform while fully supporting our officers. These ideals are not in conflict." As the conservative media machine scrambled to reframe the moment, Roumie didn't do a single victory lap. Instead, he declined follow-up interviews on partisan shows. He accepted only one interview on PBS, where he stated, "This was never about winning. It was about speaking what needed to be said, in a place where truth is rarely allowed to finish a sentence." But the impact didn't stop there. Harvard Divinity School published a reflection titled, "Faith Under Fire, Roumie's Method in Confrontational Media." Law schools use the clip in their ethics and rhetoric courses. The Harvard Law Review ran a special feature called Strategic Truth-Telling, the Roumie Model for Moral Witness. Even the American Bar Association Journal, not typically a place for actors, featured a story titled, "When Truth Speaks Softly, How One Man Broke a Media Machine Without Raising His Voice." And then something even stranger began happening across cable news. Other guests began noticing. Young attorneys, faith leaders, even nonprofit founders started requesting appearances on conservative shows. not to argue, but to replicate what Jonathan Roumie had done. Enter hostile territory with grace, preparation, and moral courage. Conservative hosts, once emboldened by applause and control, became noticeably more cautious. The days of reckless interruption were suddenly risky. The Roumie Effect became a recognized phenomenon in media circles. You can't steamroll a guest who speaks the truth calmly and comes with receipts. But the impact didn't end with television. Politicians across the spectrum took notice. Democratic strategists began advising candidates, "Pull a Roumie, don't shout, don't spin, come with facts so clean they can't be twisted." Even Republicans felt the shift. Their base, many of them Carlson's loyal viewers, had just watched their most trusted host rendered powerless by preparation. A few began quietly distancing themselves from anti-accountability rhetoric, no longer wanting to be on the wrong side of verifiable truth. 6 months later, the ripples had not slowed. Fox News began covering more stories of police accountability. Carefully worded, cautiously framed, but present. It was a silent admission. They could no longer ignore the conversation. Tucker Carlson, once untouchable, never quite recovered his dominance. He remained on air, but his aura of invincibility was gone. The man who prided himself on never being speechless had been brought low by a quiet actor who never raised his voice. And Jonathan Roumie? He launched a nonprofit, the 10th Sentence Project, focused on promoting truth, humility, and courageous dialogue in media. It attracted support from across the political divide: law enforcement leaders, pastors, and public thinkers. His method, factual, respectful, but unflinching, became a model for productive discourse in America. The Roumie-Carlson interview became a watershed moment in U.S. media history. It proved something essential, that even the loudest platforms cannot defeat calm, prepared truth, that meaningful conversation is still possible if facts are honored above fiction and integrity triumphs over theatrics. In a world addicted to conflict, Jonathan reminded people that truth doesn't need volume, it just needs courage. Today, across comment sections and political debates, a new phrase is used whenever someone is being interrupted or drowned out. Let them get to their 10th sentence, Rousey. It's a cultural shorthand, a reminder that sometimes the most important truth takes time to say and strength to protect. Because Jonathan Roumie proved you don't need to dominate a room to change it. You just need to be the most prepared, the most grounded, and the most committed to speaking the truth even when others try to silence you. The interview that was supposed to be another Carlson triumph became something else entirely, a masterclass in how facts, preparation, and grace can shatter even the strongest echo chamber. In an era where truth often feels negotiable, that lesson has never mattered more. If this story inspired you, if it reminded you that the truth still matters, subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. We're here to bring you the real stories behind the headlines, the moments when conviction breaks through noise and changes everything. And if someone tries to interrupt you before you get to the point, just remember, the most powerful sentence is often the one they try hardest to keep you from saying. Because Jonathan Roumie didn't just silence Tucker Carlson for a few seconds. He reminded a nation that when spoken with courage and clarity, truth is still the most powerful voice in the room. And that is worth subscribing for. Ask ChatGPT.